Hi everyone. Okay. Hi everyone. Would like to welcome you again to this training. So let's wait for others to join. We've got few people now. Let's just wait for others to join. I'm just gonna give them like 5 minutes. And after then we can just start. Please confirm you can actually hear me. Okay, nice. That's cool. I'm trying to make sure, whatever the last class, unfortunately, whatever I recorded didn't turn out to be, to be nice in the sense that the audio wasn't working. So I'm just gonna head up to YouTube and LinkedIn now just to check if the audio is actually working on the live, on the live views. Okay, so just give me a moment. While we're waiting for these guys, let me check, if my audio's, is actually working on YouTube and LinkedIn, then we can start. Hi, Taufik, if you could turn off your camera so that we can actually reduce the bandwidth.
I've done that.
Thank you. So still just waiting for people to join. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to go back to like the beginning. We are not going to go at the same pace we went last week. The reason being that, like I said, I couldn't upload the session that we had last week because the audio wasn't working. I went back to the YouTube channel, also checked the post on LinkedIn. I noticed the audio wasn't there, so there was no way I could actually upload, that particular session that we recorded. So what I'm going to do today is just to go through from the beginning, but it's just going to be a quick one, just like a recap of what we went through last week.
That's very.
So unfortunately, I'm just gonna mute you guys. So please, once you join the class, I would always, love if you could actually mute, and if you have any question, yes, you can unmute or raise your hand, then ask a question. That would make it, better. So just hold on. Just waiting for other people to join. At least we have some people watching on YouTube. Like I said, I'm just going to confirm the audio also, then we can just start. So while we're doing that, I've got one of my, yeah, maybe Ochanya, you might need to just reintroduce yourself today. Like I said, the last week we didn't have any audio on the YouTube channel and also on the LinkedIn. So if you could do the introduction again, same thing goes with Demola. I can say Demola here. Just a brief intro. These are people that will be joining me. Like I said, a lot of people will be joining me depending on the courses, as we go on, in this journey. So Ochanya, while I'm actually confirming the audio, if you could actually, reintroduce yourself, just a little about you, and after then Demola can actually do the same. Then that would be lovely. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Babafemi. My name is Ochanya. I'm a cloud DevOps engineer.
Let's.
And
Is it possible we put a face to it now? We'll take you out of the
okay,
spotlight very soon, if possible. If not, fine. You can go ahead.
just give me a minute.
Okay, so Demola, if you are ready, also you can actually go ahead while Ochanya is getting prepared, or if you also are also if you are also shy of the camera, you can go ahead and introduce yourself after Ochanya, you know. But it would be nice for for people that have joined the class to at least put a face to whoever is actually behind the camera. We can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm trying to confirm something. Yeah. So thanks, Baba Femi. Yeah. My name is Ademola David Raimo. I a cloud DevOps engineer and currently I work with Lloyd Register uh, as a cloud security engineer. So my day-to-day, my activity generally involves cloud security implementation end to end, and then DevSecOps implementation. So that's more of shifting left during the software development lifecycle, and where I integrate security as part of the software development. Right from the initial stage where you know the developer compiles the code, and then at the point also where integrating the CI/CD pipeline also implement security even before getting the build pipeline, and even before the building the artifact, we get security implemented as part of the stages of the pipeline. So it has been a wonderful journey because as you know I started the journey far back in Nigeria, as a network engineer with Heritage Bank, if I'm still yeah, Heritage Bank. So I spent a few years with Heritage Bank, as a network engineer, and then moving to uh, Digital Jewels as a cloud security engineer, but more of the ISO standard, more of SOC engineer with Lloyd Register, and then with Digital US rather. Then after that, moved to the United Kingdom and then joined Lloyd Register as cloud security engineer. And I've spent like 2 years. So we get to know each other as we move along. And I'll be happy to share the journey, the knowledge, and all of that things that you would need to progress in your career. Yeah.
Thanks,
So
thanks,
nice to meet you.
thanks, Demola. At least, so we are afraid already. You've got this wonderful profile. But I know a lot of people will actually learn from you. So if you wanna follow Demola on LinkedIn, that would be helpful. If you have got any question to ask him, later, I'm so sure he'll be able to attend to you. Ochan, if you are ready now, you can just actually put a face to it and just reintroduce yourself. That would be nice. Then we can go ahead with the class. So I've confirmed the audios.
Okay.
They are actually working now, on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So for people that are not able to stay back, rest assured that this is automatically being uploaded to on LinkedIn and YouTube. I also have like that recording going on already on Team. So be rest assured that you're going to get this session uploaded there, so you can go back and view if you're not even able to stay back or join at this particular moment. Okay, I'll turn over to you. If you could just reintroduce yourself, then we'll just go ahead from there.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much, Babafemi. My name is Ochanya, and I'm a cloud DevOps engineer. I'm going to be one of your mentors. I'll be popping in here every now and then. I actually started my career a while ago, and I got hands-on experience working with tech experts. You know, then I moved to other places. I stay handling different things. Um, I also, one of the things I love to do, I love to teach. I'm a technical trainer. And one thing I believe is the more you teach, the more you try to impact knowledge into other people, the more you gain knowledge yourself. So it's something I enjoy doing. So I'm going to be part of your mentors. I'm going to be part of the teachers. I'm going to be part of your trainers. Please feel free to reach out to me. I know I said a lot last week. I can't remember most of the things I said last week. So I'm just going to stop here with this brief introduction. But feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. We're approachable and available. If you have any question, if you have any, if you need to talk, if you need, if you need to, if you don't understand anything, you can always reach out to us. You can reach out to me and I'll be happy to put you through. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ochanya. At least that's kind of light introduction, but people will get to know you. You said something there. The best way, to learn something maybe is just by. For me, the best way to learn, a new technology is by teaching it. So
Yes,
it
correct.
has actually worked for me. I wasn't at this level, back then, but I know as I was, over the years, I've been able to learn a lot. Not because I do not know the fundamental there, but there are lots of things, you get to know once you start looking up for maybe new things to teach, or you're looking up for questions or the like. So I'm so sure you guys are going to enjoy this journey. So just going to quickly start sharing my screen. Then we'll start looking at what we have for today. But like I said, I'm going to take us back a little, but it's not going to be the same way we had it last week. Like I said, it's going to be like kind of fast paced today because we had these last week. But unfortunately, the recording wasn't, there was no audio. Please let me know when you can. Okay, not sharing my screen now. So let me just know when you can see my screen. I'm so sure people on LinkedIn and YouTube will be seeing it now. Okay, I'm so sure you can see my screen now. So I'm going to quickly explain what we've done for people that were not able to join last week, or for people that were asking for the the recording of the last week's session, which I was not able to provide just because of the audio wasn't working perfectly. The last week was the first time I was using OBS, so I didn't really get hold of it at that time. So let's quickly start by explaining what we have. This is the learning part. I'm not going to go back to the introduction, but I'm just going to start from what cloud computing is. So this is just to refresh our memory for people that joined last week. But like I said, we're going to go to this, in the first place. So these are the learning parts, learning objective for AZ900. We all know, this particular cohort, we are going to be diving into 6 different courses, and this is the first course. My belief is whatever you want to start, even when you know what you're doing, start from the fundamental. Having a very good grasp of the fundamental will help you through this particular journey, and that's why whenever I start a new cohort, I always want to go back to that fundamental, and that's what you're gonna be seeing here. So, yep. Now, AZ900 learning part 01 cloud concept, what we have in that particular learning part. This is what we have. We have 3 learning parts in AZ900, and we are going to be going into it. The first part is where we have the cloud computing, cloud benefit, and cloud service stack. We were able to talk to the cloud computing and the cloud benefit last week. But like I said, just because we had some glitches last week, I'm just going to, recap whatever we've done. Now, let's look at what cloud computing is. Ochai was able to tell us that cloud computing is actually delivery of computing services over the internet, just the same way you can actually see it on the screen. Now, when we talk about the computing services, we are talking about, maybe machines. It might be virtual, it might be those servers, computing system, the client and the like, storage accounts, a lot of things. Before now, we all have been using cloud computing. We might not know, at least almost everyone here has at some point used Google Drive, which is actually categorized under the storage services. So you I've been able to use that. Back in the days also, we noticed that all those applications, we do not need to get, to the office to actually connect to our server anymore. When COVID came, a lot of companies started migrating to the cloud, making sure that, their staff can actually connect from anywhere in the world just to be able to access what they have within, their internal system. So that's what we're talking about. That same IT room that your tech guys do not allow you to go in back then. Now we do not want that IT room within our office space anymore. We just want whatever is there to be in the cloud. We want to rent a space, maybe from a cloud provider, or we want to even set up our own private cloud environment so that our staff, our users can actually connect from anywhere in the world without being physically present where those internal systems are. So we've been able to explain what the cloud computing is. For people that didn't join last week, if you have access to my YouTube channel, you can see there are courses, which we've actually been able to explain everything, related to these. So you can check that up. I'll actually leave, that particular link, for you guys, maybe at the end of the class also. So we can see the compute, the networking, the storage. A lot of time with, people might just feel like, okay, because I have a router in the house, that's why I'm able to connect to the internet. No, there are a lot of things that's happening, in the back end. The network guys, that's why they have this big transmission, or whatever they will call it, satellite, where they are, and all those, they are being taken care of. The only thing that we get is just maybe a mini router, which provides Wi-Fi services to us within our house, and we're able to connect to the internet. It doesn't just come like that. There are a lot of things happening at the back end, and that's the same thing happening here. You have Google Drive. You never wondered why, since I've been using Google now for the past 10 years. Every time I try to access my files within Google Drive, I'm able to, do you ever wonder where those files are actually stored? They are stored on a computer. They are stored, maybe on hard drive or SSD at least, but they are stored within a computer. One thing I will tell you guys today is the underlying technology for this cloud is still computing system. It's still like a computer system, so everything, regardless of which one you are leveraging on, if you are leveraging on PaaS services, IaaS services, which we are going to be looking at today, what are some of the cloud services, that we have. Whatever service you're leveraging on, the underlying technology is still, machine, is still that system, So, but as we go ahead, you're going to learn more. So, Ochana, Demola, at any point in time, if you want to say anything, please do, just unmute and, go ahead and say this, because I'm just trying to rush this through so that we can continue from where we stopped last week and not waste, people's time. Yep. So compute, networking, storage. Now, I just talked about the fact that, we have different type of cloud, and this is what we call the cloud model. So we have three types of cloud model. We have the private cloud, the public cloud, and the hybrid cloud. So private cloud, it's owned by the organization. We do not want to share any cloud space with anyone. I work for Jumia, and I'm just wary. I feel like if we share the Azure cloud with the Microsoft, with let's say Konga, Microsoft might actually take information and give it to Konga, even when Microsoft has said everything is encrypted. For people that even work within the data center, they won't even have access to those files. But if we do not believe that, we just feel like, no, I do not want to have my files on there, they are sensitive information, then that is fine. You can decide not to do that, So you can create your own cloud, maybe consult the public cloud provider to help you set one up if there are public cloud provider that does that, or you want to turn that your data center, that your IT room into like like cloud where your users are able to access those files within those internal systems from anywhere in the world. So you want to look at that, and that's what we call the private cloud. When we talk about the public cloud, you are leveraging on cloud services that are being owned by these cloud providers. So when you do that, you're actually leveraging on the public cloud. And the hybrid cloud, as the name implies, this is just the combination of the private and the public. So this is just like the comparison of the public, private, and the hybrid cloud that we have. We go ahead to talk about what's the operational cost, within the cloud. So one thing I need you to know is the cloud operates in the pay-as-you-go model. So when we talk about, these are just like keywords that you need to know: capex, opex. When we talk about capex, we're talking about the capital and the expenditure. So what are some of the things, or what are some of the money you need to spend upfront before you can actually start maybe your tech journey? If you are to do, like, you just want to set up a new organization, and within that organization, you are able to acquire a building, and you want to have your data center in there, or your so-called IT room, server room that we used to call it back then. You're going to start spending some money upfront. You're going to get some equipment. You have to buy servers, you have to buy, cables, call people to come and crimp your cables, network the organization so that those computing systems can actually interconnect. All those money you spend, parts are referred to as capex because they are capital expenditure. These are upfront spending. But when you talk about operational expenditure, this is like pay as you go. So this is what you use in operating that particular data center, or if you have got yourself services within the public cloud services, this is what you need to pay every time you make use of those services. So for cloud, strictly it operates with within these opex, operational costs. So we uses the operational cost as against the capital expenditure, because you do not need to get anything before you start your cloud journey. So this is what so for people that joined, in case you have any question, also on LinkedIn, on YouTube, if you have any question, just post your question, and we'll be able to attend to it. China, if you could just keep an eye on those ones, if possible. So consumption-based model, like I said, this is what the cloud services, leverage on, because it's pay as you go. It is what you use that you pay for. If you don't use this, you're not going to pay for it, and that's just the meaning. Let's talk about the cloud benefit, which we have also talked about the last time. But as a recap, we've got lots of benefits when you leverage on the cloud. High availability, scalability, reliability, predictability, security, governance, and management. We talked about the high availability, saying your systems are always available. Now, when you host an application on a cloud provider like Azure, on Azure, your systems are always available. Microsoft has promised SLA of 99.99, meaning, let's say you only have a downtime of 14 hours in a year, roughly. So you can see how reliable it is. So the high availability is more tied to reliability. So you will see a lot of things we're going to be talking about, and how does these come into play. When you join an organization and they say, what are some of the things you can actually use to or do to improve the tech sector within our organization, the first thing that comes to mind is BCP plan, business continuity plan. But Azure, Microsoft has promised you that when you leverage on Azure, when you leverage on services within Azure, your services are always going to be available to you. This is what we call, business continuity. You will see how we can actually continue or replicate all those services, making sure that when your services are running within this particular region or this particular data center or on this particular system, how can we make sure those services are actually copied, duplicated, or replicated to a different service, to a different system, to a different region, to a different data center? We are going to be talking about these in a jiffy. Scalability also, we give example of JAMB back then. Now, when we finally, when you write your JAMB exam and you finally want to go check your, 94/400 score, everyone goes to the cyber cafe at the same time. And at that point, the JAMB website will be dragging because it's not actually configured to take that kind of traffic. We talked about the fact that requests that are being made are called traffic. So most of the time when you hear me talk about traffic, we are talking about the request going into that particular web application, that particular website. So when people are trying to check their result, they are making a request, So even when there are different type of requests that we make, we'll get to that. You guys will understand all this kind of requests. But at that point in time, they are trying to make a get request, So they are trying to get out their JAMB score because the system that is hosting that particular website is not capable to handle the kind of traffic that is coming in at that particular time. It will start dragging. Lots of people will be there 1 hour, 2 hours, not able to check, their score. It is not because at that time, or JAMB website is a failure. No, but at that particular time, it wasn't configured to cater for that kind of request, that kind of incoming traffic. So, and there was no way to scale it. There was no way to add more compute instance. There was no way to add more server to be able to share those traffic. This is what the cloud brings to you. You are able to spin off. You can even have like a conditional statement that kicks into play when this kind of things happen, and new instances are being created for you to cater for those traffic. We are going to be looking at this. So we talk about the reliability more tied with the high availability. Predictability, I explained that when we talk about predictability, we are talking about two things. We are talking about price predictability. We are talking about performance predictability. When you spin up any service or when you leverage on any service within the environment, within the Microsoft environment or within the Azure environment, you have the price already. So when you spin up, let's say you spin up a virtual machine, you're going to get like a price prediction to say this is how much we are going to charge you at the end of the month if you continue to run this machine 24 hours or 24/7. Now, performance predictability, because you are spinning up this kind of machine. So when I talk about machine, I'm still talking about that your computer system. I'm talking about that your laptop. But now you do not have access to that physical laptop. You don't have access to that physical server. They are actually in a remote area, in somewhere, in a place where it's being managed for us. All we need to do is just to create like a virtual machine on top that particular physical machine that is being managed by Microsoft staff. So that's it. So the performance, when you spin up that virtual machine, we are going to tell you, okay, this is 3 vCore, 3 virtual calls that you have 64 gig. Just the same way when you go to the market and you want to buy anything, you say, no, I don't want to buy a phone of 128 gig. It's not going to take so much, things. I've got a lot of files. I've got a lot of videos. I love watching videos on my phone. I love downloading it. So I want to go with the 512. That's the same way. So you can actually predict the performance of that your phone. And that's the same thing that is happening here. So we talk about security. One of the best plays you get, your application secured is by leveraging on cloud services. There are a lot of security models that comes in play. Lot of them. So we're going to be talking about these. And governance, manageability, more tied to or more related to, let's say, the security also. When you leverage on governance, you want to leverage on the fact that, let's say, for example, privilege identity management, which we call PIM in Azure. Now, this gives you just-in-time access. Let's say you are an admin, you're an administrator on a particular system. We do not want to just give you that admin access and say, oh, anytime you want to use it, you can just use it. No, we want to make it eligible for you. Just request when you need it. We know, yes, you want it, but it is not every time you make use of that particular admin privilege. Only request for that privilege when you need it. So it's just making sure that you only activate that particular role when there is a need for it. So, and that's why we call it just in time. So, a lot of things. We talk about the management, where we talk about the life cycle of users. When we create users, maybe within our AD, Enter ID, AWS environment, at some point, if you do not regularly review that particular user, at some point those users might turn inactive users. Let's say a staff that I've left our organization 2 years ago and it still got global admin privileges within our environment, just because we are not reviewing this particular inactive user. So with the Azure, the cloud environment, you can set up what we call the lifecycle management, where those users are actually removed, immediately they leave the organization. So a lot of things we're going to be talking about. So still the same thing, like I said, I've just explained. Now we are going to be talking about, and this is where we are supposed to start from, and that's why I quickly had to do like a recap of what we've done last week for people that were not able to join, and also for people that were requesting for the video, the recording that I wasn't able to provide. So cloud services types, what are some of the types of cloud services that we can actually leverage on? China, you're free to to talk. I know you're a master in this. If you want to explain, just let me know. Then so these are things we're going to be talking about in this particular domain. We are going to be talking about infrastructure as a service. What are services that we consider as infrastructure? So we are going to be talking about services we consider as platform. Like what are services that have been provided for us and that falls under this particular category. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and these are, the type of services that we have in the cloud. Once we're done with that, we are going to be talking about share responsibilities, where which one, or let's say, what are some of the things the cloud providers manages for you, and what are some of the things you manage when you leverage on this type of services in the cloud. And that's actually the differences between all these cloud services that you can see on here: the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Where do we come in as a cloud provider, and where does customer come in, or what are some of the things you manage as customer, and what are some of the things Microsoft manages for you? So once we're done with that, then we'll wrap it with this how to identify appropriate use case for our cloud service. If you want to go ahead, let me know. If you want me to go ahead, don't want to also let me know. But for now, I'll go ahead. So, but if you want to add anything to it, if there is any question from any of our people, please you can just unmute your mic or raise up your hand, using the button, the raise button, and you can just ask a question. So I've been talking about that your physical machine, that laptop, but now it is not, you don't have access to that physical machine anymore, because it's now in the cloud. It's now in a data center which you do not have access to. However, you can still create that particular machine and use it for whatever you want to use it for. If you want to use it for a day-to-day activity, like the same way you use your machine, you have some document there, you use it to browse, or you want to use it to host applications, or you want to use it for storage, whatever you want to use it for, So the infrastructure as a service. Now, when we talk about this, we are talking about services where you almost have full access to whatever you need to do. And these are, the kind of services, as you could see, they are more related to, let's say, virtual machine storage, the network itself, and operating systems, from a cloud provider. Now, a typical example of this kind of service is virtual machine or storage account. The question I'm going to ask is Google Drive, based on this, because we said infrastructure as a service, you are being provided with, or when you leverage on services where you are provided the infrastructure itself, like let's say the virtual machine, the storage account. Now, you all have been using Google Drive for a while. With this falls on, okay, don't let me ask that question now. Ochaya, do you want to have like maybe you have a better way of explaining these, to our people? You want to give a chance, or
Yeah, sure. So, in addition to what you have said so far, so for me, no, generally, I would say, so with the shared responsibility models, the responsibility gets shared between the cloud providers and the consumer. So this letting you know that the consumer or the customers, they have their own part to play, and while the cloud providers have their own part to play. So for things to work appropriately, for things to work the way they're supposed to work, everybody has, everybody's responsible for something. So with cloud computing, these responsibilities are shared. So the shared responsibility model is heavily tied to the cloud service types you pick. So based on the cloud service types, we have IaaS, infrastructure as a service. We have platform as a service. We have SaaS, software as a service. And what's the fourth one? That's the traditional,
Yeah.
data center kind of thing we have. So you want to say something?
Yeah, no. I said I'm just affirming what you said. Like,
Okay.
there is another one. Okay, so
Okay.
maybe Ota, just to make it easy for them,
Yeah.
could we have like a summary of these IaaS before we even go to the shared services? So I would say something like, when you talk about the infrastructure as a service, which is IaaS, we this is kind of services where the cloud provider provides an on-demand access, to maybe compute, storage, which is different from the past. So when you talk about the past, you are only being provided a platform to be able to perform whatever you need to perform within that environment. But for SaaS environment, you are only given access to maybe a cloud hosted application. So with that, it will make it easier for them. So with what we have on the screen, I will just use this to give you like an explanation. Now, from what I've just said, when you leverage on IaaS, you are being provided access to, like on-demand access to maybe compute. You have the whole infrastructure to yourself, so you can actually do anything. So when we give you the virtual machine, you know that you're the one, you can install whatever operating system you want to install on there. You can actually install any application you want to install on that particular machine. You have the full access, just the same way you have your machine, but now you do not have physical access to that machine. But when we talk about the platform, now let's take, for example, that same laptop that you own it, you have the authority, you have every access to that particular machine. But a friend of yours now says, oh, I have a problem with my machine, and there is this file I want to keep somewhere. Can I keep it on, your machine? Now you created like a folder for that person, and you shared that folder with that person. Now the person only have access to that folder. Is able to upload his files or our files. He's able to manage that folder. He can actually edit, rename everything. Now, what you've done there is you have provided a platform for that particular person. That person cannot manage any other thing. It cannot manage your operating system. It cannot manage any other thing on that particular laptop. But it can only manage, or he or she can only manage that particular folder you have created for him. That's like the platform. So you've enabled him or her, to be able to at least have access to that part of your system. So you've provided like a platform. So when we talk about the PaaS, the platform as a service, what we are talking about is, a ready to use, platform that we have provided. A typical example is when you want to start hosting your application. Instead of you creating like a virtual machine, then on that virtual machine you want to install Apache, or you want to install IaaS, you want to install, whatever you want to install IaaS, to be able to host your application. Then from there you install your DB. Then from there you start uploading your DB, uploading your application files. Now you are managing from start to finish. But here in Azure, when we talk about the platform, now we've installed whatever you need to host your application. Just come and host your application. A platform has been created for you. Now the SaaS, a typical example of SaaS, and that will make make sense. Now, because we are saying for SaaS, we are trying to provide a software for you, a ready-made, or let's say a cloud hosted software. Gmail is a typical example. You don't bring your file, you only create credentials. OneDrive, no, let me not OneDrive now. What's it? Outlook. All those ones, they are software as a service. They've provided that particular software for you. All you need to do is just to bring in your login, your credentials, and you start using it. You did not set up anything when it comes to hosting that particular application. You don't even know the application code. You don't even have the code. You did not upload, or you did not host that application. No, the only thing you have done is just to bring your credential, or create a credential on that particular, or create an account and start using it. So Ochayam, I think that answers it. So
Yeah.
if you want to put or add anything, that would be fine.
Yeah, I want to add something for that infrastructure as a service for better understanding. There's an example I usually use. So I usually I look at it as, an Airbnb. When you move into an Airbnb, the Airbnb has provided you a space, right? They've given you everything in that space. But they don't provide you with some services. They've given you a room, they've given you washing machine, they've given you microwave, they've given you gas burner. So you are doing all your cooking by yourself. That's how infrastructure as a service is. So Microsoft or the cloud provider has provided you a platform. So okay, we're giving you this platform. So build on it. Go ahead and build whatever you need to build. Go ahead and build your infrastructure on this platform we're created. And we're going to be responsible for something. We're only going to be responsible for the platform level, but every other thing you are responsible for that. Just like an Airbnb, you are responsible for washing your clothes, you are responsible for cooking your food, compared to a hotel. If you go to a hotel now, you're not responsible for cooking your food. The hotel, they'll cook for you. All you just need to do is pick up your phone and call, I need food, and they bring the food for you. That's platform as a service. Or you can even see that as as SaaS as well. You want to wash your clothes, you don't need to go and use the washing machine to wash your clothes. You just need to call them and, hey, I need to wash my clothes, and they come and pick it up and wash it for you. So you can see the difference with an Airbnb and an hotel. Airbnb, they provide you the parlor, the very big space, do everything you need to do. You can wash your clothes yourself. We're giving you freedom to do as much as you want to do, compared to a hotel. Hotel, you don't have to do a lot. They do everything for you. They're taking the responsibility off you. So they're telling you chill. And that's what the cloud provider is telling you. Hey, come to us. Depends on the service you want. We have all the services for you. If you want infrastructure as a service, we've got that for you. We're giving you a platform. Build on that platform. Oh, if you don't want so much, if you want all the responsibility to be on us, we have a platform for you as well. And that's where the platform comes in. That's where SaaS comes in. An example of SaaS, most of you have on your computers or on your phones. You have your Spotify, you have your Instagram. All you just need to do is log into it, and boom, you are into that service. All you need to do, log into Facebook, and you're chatting with your friends. That's an example of SaaS product. You don't know the technology that is behind that Facebook. You don't know the technology that's behind Instagram. You don't know technology that's behind Spotify. All you do is log into Spotify and you start listening to music. But there's an infrastructure behind all these products. I don't know if that's making sense. Papa Femi, is that making sense?
Yes,
Guys, if you have any question, if you don't understand, because this is if you really need to understand this cloud model, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. You need to really understand this. And all these cloud models, they have their responsibilities. If you pick infrastructure as a service, Microsoft is telling you that, hey, we are responsible for the platform level. You have your own responsibility. Your own responsibility is more than the responsibility of the cloud providers. If you pick a platform as a service, Microsoft is telling that it's going to be a shared responsibility. We're sharing it equally. Then if you pick SaaS, Microsoft or the cloud provider is telling you that majority of the responsibility is going to be placed on us. We're doing a lot of things for you. Demola, I can see your hands up.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm trying, usually as a security engineer, you think outside the box. So logically, I would notice. So I just want to put in to set an expectation on this, more of looking at the security implementation or the security responsibility when it comes to IaaS, PaaS, and software as a service. So logically, when you look at IaaS, so you are responsible for the OS, for the networking configuration, for the app data, and the runtime updates and management. Okay, so and then the provider, provide the hardware part of it, and also the virtualization and the core networking. So so for PaaS, you manage your code. Yeah, you secure your code, user access to the platform, and the provider, logically provide the runtime and the platform updates. They manage that when it comes to PaaS. And then for SaaS, you usually configure, when it comes to user access and or for SaaS platform, you'd configure your role-based access control, you'd configure your SSO configuration, you make sure that MFA is in place for user accessing your SaaS application. You understand? And then for PaaS, it's more of a shared responsibility. It depends on the provider, but it's more shared responsibility between you and the provider to make sure that the platform is secured. You understand? And for IaaS, you are responsible for the full configuration. So I just want to, put that in there so that you guys can, have an understanding of the responsibility of the security part of it. Yeah.
Thank you. So
Thank
I
you.
started showing the shared responsibilities when it
The
comes
diagram.
when it comes to the same thing China and Demola has been talking about. So now you can see the shared responsibilities. Now whatever you see this particular color, the dim one, it shows what the customer is actually responsible for. But the light one shows what Microsoft is responsible for. Now, for on-premises or when you leverage on your own private cloud, these are what you'll be responsible for. We talked about the fact that there are some things you need to put in place. The infrastructures, you need to put them in place, like the server, the network and the likes. And that is why you have the physical data center as a responsibility when you leverage on the on-premises environment. Same thing goes with the network, the physical network. Now you can see what we have in front of it. So keep that in mind, the physical. So physical network, physical data center, now, if you do not really know how the data center looks like, just take it the same way your IT room back then looks like. No, though we might have a few computing services or computing systems in your tech or IT room then, but that's the same thing. You just have servers, some other things that makes up that data center. The physical data center, you need a space. You need a space for it, and that's what you can see as physical data center. You need that network, then you need the host. Now, when we talk about the host, we are talking about the computing systems. We are talking about that your server, whatever, the storage, whatever computing system you want to put in there. So when you leverage on that on premises, you have everything to manage. Now you can see this does not apply to the SaaS, to the PaaS, and the IaaS, because everything is managed by Microsoft. Everything, the data center, the physical network, and also the hosts, the servers, they are being managed by Microsoft, by the cloud provider now. Now, when you now leverage on IaaS, which will, be, like the one where the customer will manage majority of the stuff here. Now, when we talk about the IaaS, like I said, it's just like you creating a virtual machine. When you create a virtual machine on the cloud provider, on, let's say, on Azure, you are going to be the one to manage the operating system. You want to say, oh, I want Linux operating system, I want Windows 10, I want Windows Server 2022. Now you will be the one to choose the operating system. You'll be the one to manage the operating system. Any updates, any security patches, you'll be the one responsible for that. Network control, if you do not want network on that particular system, are people able to access internet from that particular system? Lots of things, you have that decision to make. Now the same thing goes with the application. Now that application, okay, what are the applications you want to have in there? Where do you want to install these? Do you want to leverage on Apache? Do you want to install IIS, to be able to start hosting your application? Just the same way you have your laptop, it is you that will decide what application you want to install on there. Do you want to have Zoom, Teams, all those things are your calling. Identity and directory services, let's say you want to be able to manage user identities from there, you'll be the one to make that decision. Same thing goes with the accounts and identities, the device. Now here it's now, even when you have created your virtual machine now, you still need a device to access that virtual machine, because what you've created is a machine in the cloud. Now, and we've actually explained the cloud services or cloud computing to be access of computing services over the internet. Now, for you to be able to access those services that you've leveraged on, those storage accounts that you've created, those virtual machines that you've created, the same way when you want to access your Google Drive, you still need your phone. You still need a phone. Your Google Photos, you still need a phone. So now you'll be the one responsible for that. The devices and what data, what file do you want to update or you want to put on there. You are the one responsible for it. Now, if you want to have videos within your Google Drive, you're the one responsible for it. Whatever files you want to put in there, whatever you want to download in there. Now, you can see that same thing goes with the SaaS and the PaaS. Now, yes, the data, the information, you will need one to bring it. Then the devices also, like I said, you cannot access Gmail without a phone, a desktop, so you need a device to be able to do that. Same thing goes with the accounts. You'll be the one to create accounts for it. Now here comes the shared responsibility. So you can see here, same thing goes with the PaaS. We have some of these being managed by the cloud provider and some being managed by, so when we talk about the identity infrastructures, it's being managed by the cloud provider, but at least the identity that you still use, so when we talk about identities, we'll still get there. I think we'll talk more about identities when we get to maybe security, though we'll talk about it when we get to Azure administrator class, also. But we'll talk more on it when we get to the AZ500, where we are going to really dive into identities. So when we talk about identity, what's your own identity? We are talking about the user, the account. That account that you are using to access this specific application. That's your identity. So it's not different from that. English word, that identity, So when you talk about identity, do not get confused. You are still talking about that user account, that credentials, Now, the only difference with these when it come to pass is the fact that you have been provided a platform. Google Drive is a typical PaaS environment. You have been provided a platform to be able to upload, your system or upload your files. I've seen people host, website on Google Drive, though you cannot add a custom domain to it. So it's just going to be like a link, one Google Drive link where you can access. And that's why when you actually have like an interview and people say, oh, record yourself for 5 minutes and provide me the information, provide me the link, so a platform has been created for you where you can actually upload things, so you leverage on that. You do not control the number of gig, just the same way where you have, if you are leveraging on your system, you can say, I want to dedicate 20 gig for storage. I want to create a folder, and mount, or I want to create a file, or I want to create like a drive within my laptop, and I want 20 gig of data, specifically for that particular drive. Now you are the one making that decision. On Google Drive, you cannot make that decision. Every customer, every Google Drive user only have access to 15 GB, of memory. So if there is a need for you to increase it, then you need to pay. The first 15 is free for everyone. So now the platform has been created for you, and within that platform, you do not have access to manage some of the things. And that's why we say, oh, it's a platform as a service, because you said you only need a service where you can upload your files. You only need a service where you can host your application. And we say, okay, that's fine. You do not need the physical system. We can create a platform for you, and you can leverage on this platform to be able to perform whatever you need to perform. And that's, those are the and for this network control, when it comes to the PaaS, you can say the application we created, we only need users within our organization to access those applications. We do not want to make this application a public-facing application. We do not want to make this application something anyone on the internet can access, and that's what we call public-facing. Only people within our, or users within our environment can actually access it. I'm so sure you people will have heard of intranet before. Internet. So when we talk about intranet, we are talking about people within a specific location, or only people that have access to that particular thing. So it's more of you having like a private environment as against the public, which is the internet facing. Everyone on the internet can have access to it. So that's what we talk about when it comes to this network control. So you can see for SaaS, we talk about services where a ready-made cloud services application just provided to you. Just bring your credentials and you can start using it, as against the the platform as a service where a platform has been provided for you. Whatever you want to do, you do not need to start creating a new infrastructure, creating a new virtual machine to be able to do whatever you need to do. In this case, you don't need to worry yourself about patches. You don't need to worry yourself about the operating system. This operating system. No, you don't need to worry yourself about system crashing. A platform. All you need is just a platform to be able to host your application. That's all you seek. So we'll talk about all this. But when you leverage on IaaS, you are putting the whole responsibility to yourself. The only thing you are not managing are the physical system. Achayam, Demola, any other thing you want to add? But before then, I've got some questions here on Teams that says, how can I watch the previous videos on YouTube and this present one? So unfortunately, the last video we made, the last session, that we made, there was no audio. So currently I do not have any of those recording. But like I said, I've got, if you go to my YouTube channel, which I'm just going to add here. Sorry. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see the courses that I've made before, and on this same, or the videos we've made before on this same course, and you can actually leverage on that. It's going to give you the same thing. Just the only difference there is I've got specialists. There I was the only one presenting. I've got people joining me in this particular, and this is why this is kind of different from the ones we've been adding. I've always had this private cloud training. This is the first time, and I'm pushing this, live. I'm pushing this to everyone, anyone that wants to join, anyone that wants to, be it on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Before, what I do is just to record the section, invite you to my what's this Slack environment, a Slack community, then add you on this particular class. But now I'm making it accessible to everyone. The other question here is, which of these cloud models? So do not let us mistake this thing now. Which of these cloud models have more advantage than the others? These are not cloud models. These are cloud services. So when we talk about cloud models, you are talking about the private, the public, and the hybrid cloud model. But when we talk about cloud services, we are talking about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So I would infer that you are referring to cloud services. Michael, if you want to mute your mic and just clarify.
I think he's referring to cloud services.
Okay. So
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
okay. So which one of these have more advantage? Demola or China? Do you guys want to take it?
So there's no one that has more advantage than the other. So depending on what you want, depending on the need of the customer or the client or the consumer, is what you're going to pick. So they're both important: IaaS, SaaS, PaaS. So depending on what you're building, if you're going to be building more infrastructure, if you're going to be working on infrastructure, of course you go for IaaS, where you have total control of your environment. You get to work on virtual machines, you get to work on networking, you get to work on storage in the cloud. So you go for IaaS. If you're going to be building, you have more control. But if you're not going to be building, if you need to maybe host applications, you need like a different platform to host your application, host your containers, and you go for PaaS services. So depending on what you want, no one is better than any. So we won't tell you that IaaS is better or PaaS is better or SaaS is better. They're all very important. They all have their own unique need. They all have their own unique thing they do, so all of them are important.
Yeah, there's no differences, like Ochanya has said, it all depends on what you want. So if there is a need for you to take total control of your infrastructure, you won't go for PaaS. But if you want to save money, if you're looking at cost and more security, you just feel like, why do I always want to have security patches? Why, I can just leverage on the platform as a service and use that to host my application. That will make you. So there are some of these things you just want to put or consider, or the organization will consider before leveraging on this different type of cloud services that we have. I believe that answered your question.
Yes, it did.
All right, thank you. So this is just the comparison when it comes to all these that we've been talking about. Now you can see IaaS the most flexible because you have you have the total control. So, Yusuf, the question that says, I can see a question that says, example of company that uses IaaS services. All organization uses IaaS services. Even for personal use, we all use IaaS services because you always want to have a virtual machine. You want to always have a storage account. Where you can actually save. So all organization uses. So all organization that leverages on cloud, I will tell you, all of them, they use all these type of services, different type of services. It all depends on their need, for it. So everyone uses IaaS, everyone uses PaaS, everyone uses SaaS. It all depends on the need. Tell me you don't use SaaS. You use Outlook, you use Google, Gmail. You still use this. Even you use almost everything. So you have access to Gmail. You have access to Google Drive. You still use your laptop. So you are the one
We're
putting.
currently using Teams.
Yeah, you're currently using Teams. So all organizations, leverages on all those IaaS services. So you can see for PaaS, focus on application development. PaaS management is handled by the cloud provider. So the underlying service is still the virtual machine. Though you are hosting something on air, but there is still a virtual machine behind it. So when we say we host application, when we start talking about these different type of PaaS services, you can see there is still a way we can check which virtual machine IP address we are actually hosting our application on, even when we do not have access to that virtual machine. So you would see all these things, we are still leveraging on PaaS services, on virtual machine, which is the underlying, service or technology behind all these services. Now, the last one is SaaS, which is like a pay-as-you-go model, just a ready-made model or a ready-made service. Just bring your credentials and you are able to log in. So that's it for the first part where we have this. Now let's check. I do not have the instruction, so I would just close this one and go back to the next one. Okay, so I'm gonna share the next learning part. Then we'll just quickly talk about. So those things are not. So just hold on. So you might need to pay more because now you guys are turning to seniors already. Very soon you will not hear me talk about use some languages like IT room. No, it's only going to be data center. I'm not going to be using machine laptop again. No, I will talk about machine. Virtual machines. So just but we're still in fundamental. Lot of those keywords are still going to come in. Now, the next learning part here is the Azure architecture and services. Now we are really going to be looking at what is the architecture and what are some of the services that we have within Azure environment. Now, the learning part outline, you can see we are going to be talking about Azure architecture component, where we talk about regions, availability zones, subscription, resource group, lot of technical jargons, but you want to understand all these things. And once you understand all this, I will tell you till we'll complete this particular cohort. These are stuffs that will keep coming back. These are stuffs we are going to be discussing. We are just going to, be going more in details on each of those services, but these are the same thing. So you need to have the understanding of this particular course. So the next one on this particular learning part is computer networking. So the compute type, what are compute type? Then we'll talk about application hosting, virtual networking. Now that we do not have access to those physical cables. When you go to the office, then they will say, connect your system to the wall, to that. So there is always this faceplate on the wall where you just take that cable and just put it on that particular system and say, is it working? Yes, it's working. If it's not working, you call your IT guys, they'll come under the table, try to, work on that thing. They will say, oh, it's the switch. All those whatever jargons they have been working on, you do not have access to it anymore. And that's why in your home, you just buy one small Wi-Fi, you put it on your decks, you turn it on, you connect to Wi-Fi, you just feel like, oh, internet is there. A lot of things is happening at the back end, So we talk about this networking. Now that's why the virtual is in front of it, because you do not have access to those cables anymore, those physical cables, virtual networking. Then we'll talk about storage services, redundancy options. Now we'll start looking at what are some of the benefits now. We talk about reliability, we talk about high availability. You see some of this component now, which we are going to be talking about. You see how all those things works, how it functions, how our services are being duplicated. So we'll talk about file management and migration. Then we'll wrap this particular learning part with identity, access, and security. So I just talked about the fact that when you talk about identity, we are talking about that user account associated with data. It might not even be user account, but that account associated with data is what we refer to as identity. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about directory services, what are authentication method. Now, this is Demola's best food when you talk about security. So he was talking about the fact that I heard him mentioning MFA the other time, which is the same thing we do when you want to log into something or to your phone. They will tell you, or Gmail, they'll tell you somebody is trying to access your Gmail from Amsterdam. We've sent a code to your system. Can you give us that code? That is 2FA. We are saying, yes, we understand that you have that access, you have that username and password, but we still don't believe you are the owner. Can you go to this second level of authentication? And what's the second level of authentication? You have sent a code to your phone. You have sent a code to your Gmail. You have sent a code, to your WhatsApp. It's a second level of authentication. We are saying, yes, you can authenticate, fine, but we want to confirm you own it. That phone you registered with us, we've sent a text message to it. So, yeah, we'll talk about authentication method and look at some of the security models that we have within Azure. Are you ready? All right. This is just talking about how we can create our Azure account. For now, don't worry. Pretend as if you're not seeing these, even when we want to talk about it. So these are different ways of creating your Azure account. Azure account. I think I have a video on that my YouTube where, which I made on how to create a free Azure account, so you can take a look at it. Azure account, you can also create the Azure free account. So when we create an Azure account, maybe the one you need to always pay, a pay-as-you-go account, you need to add like a subscription to it. Oh, subscription. Did I just mention that? So we'll understand what subscriptions are very soon. So you create an Azure account for you to be able to create your services, for you to be able to create that particular virtual machine, that storage account. You need, that Azure account. Organization has their own Azure account, and that's why they're able to log in. You can also create a free Azure account or Azure free account, whichever way you want to use that English. So by going to azure.com/ azure.microsoft.com/free, can actually add all those information later. So you create your own Azure account, and when you create a free Azure account, at least for a month, you are able to make use of this particular account. I think you only get your card will be deducted. Your card, £1 or $1 will be deducted from your card. I don't know how much, and at some point it will be reverted back to your account. It's just to verify that that particular payment method works. So you can also create a free student account if you're a student. I think this will give you $100 for 1 year, so renewable every month, so it gives you access to all services within Azure. However, all these accounts, when we talk about free account, student accounts, there are some restrictions, when it comes to some services. You will be able to deploy, but you will not be able to use some, for now, I would say category of some services, but you'll get there. You will understand what I mean soon. Then the last one is the Microsoft Learn Sandbox. Now, you do not want to create an account, but you want to just quickly reproduce what we've done in class. You can leverage on the sandbox provided by Microsoft, and that is what we are going to be using, for our practicals within this particular course. Once we're done with the theoretical session of this particular course, so the sandbox. So these are different ways of accessing Azure environment, but for now, you do not need to access the Azure environment. Pretend as if it's not even there. I did not talk about this thing. So, they said it. They said we should have a walkthrough. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to be creating one, but we can have like a walkthrough. So I'm just going to. How do we create a free account in Azure? So, like I said, I've got a video where I talked about these if you want to leverage on it. But Azure Microsoft, I hope I have it. But you do not need to cram anything. Just look for create Azure account. So I can go to azure.microsoft.com. Yep. So azure.microsoft.com, it takes me here. I know the website. I'll just type /free and it takes me there. But you can get to azure.com, azure.microsoft.com, and from here you can click on get started with Azure and try Azure for free, and it takes you to that that sign up page where you can sign up for your Azure account. Now, when you're signing up, you need a Microsoft account. That Microsoft account, if you have an Outlook account, yes, that's a Microsoft account. If you have a Gmail account, automatically it's not a Microsoft account. You can actually create one Microsoft account if you do not have one. But if you have one, that is fine. If I try to use any of these one, it's just going to tell me this is already a Microsoft account. Do you just want to sign in? If you have that one, you can try signing in first. If you're able to sign in, like I said, you might have associated your Gmail, your email with Microsoft product, and that would have made it a Microsoft account. But if not, just click on create one and you can continue. Okay, let me see. So I've got this video on YouTube. I'm going to drop it now. So if you want to search that, just to make it easy, because I know some people are not on this particular call or on this particular Teams, so they are also they join from different platform, just to make it easy. So if you go to youtube.com/ you can use @tech talk with Baba Femi. Oh my word. Sorry, you added 2 before it take me to Face DB's channel. So the art wasn't there. Yeah. So it takes you. I'll still drop this one here, so you can go here. Now, I've got some videos here. So don't actually. You should be able to, let's say, create That's yeah. So if you search for that, create an Azure account, that particular video is there. So I'm just going to drop this one.
Hello guys.
Don't worry. So if you want to go through it, that is fine. I will drop it on the YouTube and also on the LinkedIn too. So for you, if you want to go through it, that's fine. So there I've actually showed how you can actually create your Azure free account. And if you want to go, if you do not want the free account, you want to be paying, you can try the pay as you go. So let's just continue. That would, if you have any question at any point in time, please do not hesitate to ask. How do we explore the learning sandbox? Give me a minute also. I'm going to do that. I've got a video for that also, but we can take a look at that one. Why I did not continue with creating that Azure account is I've actually used that particular, I've associated it with the Microsoft account. I'll get to a point where I will be asked to supply some information which I will not be able to. So to explore the Microsoft free account, let me go to one of my videos. Give me a minute. That's where the link is. I'm so sorry. I will hide the link also. So that's why. Yep. So this video here, there is this video which I've created, and that's the same video. Is the first training video or lab video in Azure Fundamental, where I've actually explained how you can actually explore the learn sandbox, step by step. So there is the link is also there, so I'm just going to use the link and let's explore it together. So the sandbox is like, Microsoft has actually created like a playing ground for you to be able to replicate whatever you've been asked, to do in class. If you do not want to create, like a session. So sorry, this is going to give me, choose the arrow, the same icon. So this goes here, using the arrow, connect. Okay. No way. Microsoft can come with a lot of tricky puzzles. So this is just because before I can get into that particular sandbox, there's some verification that's actually in place. I would explain those things once I'm able to get into the sandbox. I will let you know some of the information you need to look into also. Just give me a while. So if you see these, it's the normal thing. So just continue. Something went wrong. I'm going to start again. This is one of the things you face. Yep, that's fine. This is car. Yep, that's fine. And this is B. And this, yes, that's fine. This is just like a game. I'm loving it. Yep, this is fine. And the last one, no way. Yep. So, yep. So now you can see what is happening. The sandbox is being created for us. It has not started working, Now, what we need to do again is to review our permission. In Azure, we talked about the fact that user accounts, some accounts, those are referred to as identities. For your identity to be able to do some things within the environment, you get there, you need some permission. Just the same way when you rent an apartment. When you rent an apartment, if you don't have the key, you won't have access to the house. So the key is just like an admin role given to you. Someone else that doesn't have, that key will not be able to access the apartment. So that's the same thing happening in Azure. So you need like a permission to be able to perform some things. Now, even within the house, let's say a family of 3, a family of 4, there are some things the parents will be able to do which the kids will not be able to do, like maybe stay outside for a while, before coming back home, so some things. So there are always levels, or there are always permissions to whatever you do, so that's the same way we have it in Azure. Now, our sandbox has been activated, as you can see. Now you have access to 10 sandboxes every day, and each one, when you activate it, it will last for an hour, and after 1 hour you can actually activate another one. So now you can see my sandbox has been activated. Everything looks good, but on this side it has not done what I need it to do. So I'm just going to sign in again. So for you to be able to use this one, you need to have a Microsoft Learn account. So what's going on? Just give me it. Yep. Yeah, that's my Learn. So this is it. Sometimes you face this kind of issue. It's my Learn account. So I'm supposed to have, oh my word. Okay, pop-up blocked. Just going to allow it. Okay. So that should do the trick. Yep. You guys should ask questions if you have any question. What's happening? Okay, I know what's going on. But let me do this so that I don't just say go and fix it and you also start having the same issue. I'm just going to open this in an private browser. I'm so sorry, I might need to go through that puzzle again, but I cannot run from this challenge, so that next time you guys are actually doing it, you won't say, oh, even the tutor last time, it didn't complete it. So I'm just going to complete this. It's so needed. So yep. So this was what I was waiting for. The other time, what happened was, because I was using the normal browser, a different account has been cached and is not seeing that account within the Microsoft account or the Microsoft tenant, and that's why I'm not able to connect. So immediately I switched to incognito. It's just like a fresh browser where no account is actually cached, and you'll be the one to log into it. Now the same thing. So here, this is the only time I know I've actually accessed the sandbox. So you can see I've got like a PowerShell screen on this side. Don't worry if you do not know anything about PowerShell. We are not writing any code. What we are just going to be doing here, we are just going to be replicating what has been provided to us. But in this particular one, it's just for us to be able to explore the sandbox. So what are some of the ways that we use in accessing the Azure environment. So we can use the platform. We can actually use the platform. So the first one is the PowerShell environment. So we can connect to our Azure environment using PowerShell. So here, task 1 is for us to explore the PowerShell environment, the PowerShell CLI. And the PowerShell, instead of me looking at the date on my system, I can type something like get date. And don't worry about this code now. So sorry. I switch away from PowerShell already. I'm so sorry. Just give me a minute. But nothing really is happening here. You do not need to cram anything. So we are just exploring the sandbox. So get the date. You can see this is the date, this is the time, and the likes. So that's it. The next thing is for us to do this. We are just doing what they ask us to do. So once you read this particular task, you would see everything you need to do within a particular task, and that's how those other tasks are like. So here we are just checking the version of the PowerShell that has been installed. The other one for PowerShell. So when we talk about the PowerShell CLI, we're talking about the command interface, where instead of us doing anything from the portal using, the GUI, using the graphical interface, what if we want to use or run a script to perform that thing for us? So that's when we leverage on PowerShell, the bash. So the bash, they are actually on Linux machine. Like if you are actually using a Mac machine, a Mac system, you might not see PowerShell on it. Mac has the bash, dashboard. So on Windows, if you go on your Windows laptop now, if you search for PowerShell, you are going to see it. You can also leverage on bash on Windows, but you need to install the bash. You can use the command prompt also, to be able to run some bash script, but you need to install bash. But for now, we are just exploring the environment. So don't, because of this, not join the class next week. We are not writing any code. Now we're switching to bash, and this, if you want to run like the same thing I run on my PowerShell, and you want to run it on your Mac system, on your Linux system, and you can see this is going to get an error, but I'm just going to run what we need to do. But you can see how interesting PowerShell is. Let me just tell you something. Yeah, when you want to learn PowerShell, let's even say you want to learn code in the future. If you start with scripting, like the PowerShell scripting, it's just English language, you can see. So I'm just saying there is a verb and there is a noun. The verb comes first and there is a noun, and that's how everything is like in PowerShell. So when we get to, the Azure environment and we are creating like virtual machine, if we want to create a virtual machine now, we just do new VM, new -VM. That means that we want to create a new virtual machine. When we want to get information about a particular machine, we just do get -VM, get virtual machine. So you have the verb, you have the noun. So it's nothing. So in case you want to learn, so when people say, "Oh, I don't want to learn coding, it's too difficult," I'm just saying this is the same way we learn it. It's just you learning English language, learning Yoruba language, or whatever language you speak. You understand? Or you want to learn French. That's the same way you learn, programming languages, and it's just going to be part of you. It's just going to be as if you are learning a new language, and when you understand it, you'll be able to interact with the system, with the computer system, with what you've learned. So it is not something that big. So don't categorize it as something that big, So the bash, the only thing is the syntax are different. So what this particular tax want us to do, it want us to still run the get date, which is not a bash code. We are going to get an error, So we are going to get an error. for batch makes it so easy and say, why do you want to have verb and that have just run date, like just run the date, that would be fine, that's enough, that is it. But it might not be this easy, but it's this easy. Do you understand? So this next thing is for us to run these, which is fine. I'm not going to run that. Same thing, just to upgrade this particular is going to take a while. The next one is Easy Interactive. If you want to run our Azure CLI, we talked about PowerShell. I said, oh, this is for Windows. We talk about Batch. I said this is for Mac. Azure has this particular CLI command interface within the Azure environment. So Microsoft has actually integrated, this interfaces within the Azure environment so that you do not need to run it from your system. You do not need to get through the Azure of connecting your system to your user account, from your system to the Azure environment. Why not run it within our environment? So that is what but here what the interactive does is, now you can see if I type something like get, or I type something like date, nothing is happening. But developers will working this way, like every time they want to work, it takes them time. They need to be thinking of what they code. They need to cram all the code. No, it doesn't work that way. So see, I'm going to run this and you will see how it works. So we always depend on suggestion also, from the system. Now it's been installed and you will see what will happen after this has been installed. If I try to run anything, so just hold on, I'm still installing this, just give me a minute. This has been installed, so I will just mute my mic until it's finally installed. So let's hold on. So in case you have any question, since this is still installing, just let me know. We can actually respond to questions now, why this is being installed. Okay, I don't know what happened, but there's some errors, but let's see, let's try if this works. No, that didn't work, so I'm just going to try it again. So I'm supposed to get, I'm in the shell already. Yep. So what happened? Yep, this is working now. So you can see what's going on. What's going on now is the fact that it's going to be kind of blurry, but once I type the AZ, it's giving me suggestion. It was supposed to give me this kind of suggestion, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to create, like, you want to work with an Azure account, an ACL, ACS? Don't worry about all these jargons now. Those acronyms all have, like a full meaning, so the interactive, that's what it does for you. And the last one being the portal is, how do we now use the portal? So let me take you to the portal. How does Azure portal looks like, just for us to be able to see how it looks like. I'm going to click this and it's going to take me to the Azure portal. So I need to log in with the same email, which is babafemi.bulugbe@gmail.com. But when you want to log into your Azure portal, all you need is, I won't be able to log in now. You need more information, like 2FA. You want me to register 2FA with this particular? Let's see. Yeah. So, but when you want to log into the Azure environment, all you need to is just to go to portal.azure.com and you are able to log in. But this is the least thing you should worry yourself with now. So I'm going to minimize these. There is a video, like I said, I've created for this particular purpose, which is Azure Fundamental Lab 1. And you can search that within the playlist here. And that particular video talks about what I was trying to do the other time. Should in case you have any issue, you can look at that video, and if you have any issue, just let me know. But I can drop that also here. If you go to the playlist, you can see the Azure Fundamental Labs, and this will be the first one, which is the Azure Fundamental Lab 1, Explore the Learn Sandbox. So if you want to go to that, I'm just going to drop the whole playlist here in case you want to go to the labs that we have within the Azure Fundamental class. So with that being said, I'm just going to minimize these and go back to the class. So this is all they needed us, to talk about, to explore, within the Microsoft Learn Sandbox. I think that should be enough for today. I think we can go ahead. We just started this one, so let's talk about this one so that we make use of the time, and next week we can continue from with this. So why I was actually presenting, let's see. Okay, I think he has dropped. I noticed one of the speakers, or one of the joined the other time, but he has dropped. I wanted to introduce him. Okay, so now let's talk about the Azure architectural component. If you want me to go ahead, just let me know. If you are tired already, let me know. If you want me to go ahead, you can give a thumbs up. If not, you can give me this tired face. Then I know you guys are tired. We can just shift it to. All right, so I'm just quickly going to go through these maybe for the last 15 minutes that we have now. Azure architectural component. We've been talking about a lot of things. I talked about the benefits that we have in Azure. What are some of the things we are going to be looking at? So what are the components that actually gives us those benefits that we just talked about? Here we are going to be looking at the Azure architectural component. What are some of the core components that we must know? Azure regions, sovereign regions, region pairs. What are all these jargons? Availability zones, Azure data center, resources, resource groups, subscriptions, management group, and hierarchy. So I'm going to talk about this, before we start getting to those slides, so that when we get to those slides, we are just going to breeze through the slides. Now, this wants us to describe what Azure region is. I'm not going to describe it. I'm just going to give you a description of what to expect. Majority of us come from Nigeria. I'm so sorry if you're not from Nigeria here. Now, when we talk about regions, we know, in Nigeria we have 3 main regions. We have if more than that, but we know we have, the north. Yeah, more than 3 regions, but let's now put it in 3 regions. Let's categorize it into 3 regions. We have the north, we have the southwest or the west part, and let's forget about let's add the south, the east. Let's make it 4 now. Those ones are regions. Within each regions, we have different states, we have different cities within each region. Now, let's connect this with the data centers. Now, we've talked about the fact that our data centers are where those computing systems are now. Our data centers are where the Microsoft guys are now, where they are managing those physical systems, physical hosts, Now, we do not have access to it, but they have access to it. But we can actually leverage on it by deploying services within those data centers. we all know that Lagos is a city or state in the west. So Lagos, let's say there is a data center in Lagos where our application is hosted. There is another data center in Onitsha. Now we are talking about the east now. That's another region. Now we talk about the south. Let's take Benin as a city in the south. Is another region. But we have another data center within a region. Sorry, not region now. We are talking about zones. No, don't let us say region now, because if I do a region, that would be too wide. That would be too, no, or let's say it will be too small. Now I'm going to call those ones zones. So I'm going to call those ones zones. So the southwest zones, the south zones, the west, the east, and the north zone. Now within each zones, we can have different data centers. There might be a data center in Lagos. There is another data center in Abeokuta in Ogun State. Those are two data centers in the west. That's a zone. So we have one data center in Lagos. We have another data center in Abeokuta. So the two data centers now, they make up what we call availability zones. That means if I want to leverage on just availability zone, I can say I want to deploy my application in Abuja, in Lagos, but I want it replicated to Ogun. Meaning, even if there is no light, or there is something happened in Ogun State, and we do not have access to, our system again, we do not have access to that application that we've hosted in Ogun State, the Lagos one is still there. Do you understand? Now, that's a zone. We are leveraging on the availability zone. What if we have another data center in Benin, another one in Asaba? Now that's another zone in the south. So we have different data center, but they are still within zone. So I can say, oh, I'm not sure I want to, put my data center or my application within Ogun and Lagos, because Ogun and Lagos is just within a zone. What if the whole zone is down? I will replicate, this application in Benin. That's another zone. So now we started leveraging on availability zones. The same thing in Onitsha, the same thing in Abakaliki, which is actually on the eastern, zone. Same thing goes in maybe Abuja and Kano. So we have all those zones now. All those zones makes up what we call a region. So I would say Nigeria is a region. So we are saying data center, there is data center within the zones, then there is zones within the region. Now that means even if there is a downtime in one data center, I can have my application being hosted in a different data center in a different zone, which is, it makes it secure. It makes it, I know that my application is always available. Now, what happened? There's a downtime. The grid has fallen in Nigeria and there is no light. There is nothing. We cannot access our application. Does that mean that, customers, and this application is a public facing application, that means the downtime, no one is able to access that application? That's a failure. That means Azure, whatever Azure has promised us, that 99%, 99.9 SLA, it doesn't work in that regard. So what Azure has, or Microsoft has done is the same way we have all those cities, all those data centers in each of those cities. Let's have the same in Ghana. There should be one data center in Aflao. There should be one data center in Elubu. There is one in Accra. We want to have it. The old Ghana makes up what we call a region. Those two now when we have two regions that are 300 miles away from each other, is what we call the region pair. So we can say I want to replicate my application in a different region, not even when I have, my application replicated in different data center in a different zone within my region. I want to have it replicated in a different region. Now we are now talking about, the region peer. So that's where the region peer comes in. So regions that are 300 miles away from each other, you would see those regions now. That's why we say, oh, what's our region pair? When we create it in, West Europe, East Europe will be the region pair. When we create this in West US, East US will be the region pair. So all those things. Sovereign regions, there are some regions specifically they are made for the government. You will hear about the Azure cloud. We hear about the US government cloud. So those ones are only available. Those regions are only available to those government, governmental organizations. So now we'll talk about that. Now I've talked about Azure Data Center. You might not be aware. I've talked about Azure availability zones, regions, region peers, different region. Now let's talk about the resources, resource group, subscriptions management group. I'm just going to talk about this. I'm going to describe this, to make it easy for you guys. Now, when you rent an apartment, you don't own the house. The landlord owns the house. So this apartment that you have rented is an unfurnished apartment. Yes. So that means what you're going to be doing is you're going to be bringing your properties to that particular apartment. And when we talk about you bringing your properties, that means you need money to be able to acquire, chairs that you're going to put in the living room. You need TV, you need radio, sound bar, whatever you want to put in there, all that money that you're using to acquire those TVs, those soundbar, beddings, we'll refer to it for now as subscription. Because without a subscription, you will not be able to create resource within the Azure environment. Now, those TVs, those soundbar, that particular blender that you've bought, we refer to them as resources. That's the way, it is in Azure. So now, you've got money, we've said that subscription. You need, that subscription to be able to create resources. Now, those TVs, those, laptop, whatever you're bringing into that house, that's referred to as resources. Where does resource group now comes in? I just told you, when you get an apartment, in that particular apartment, there will be layout. This is the living room. This is the master bedroom. I'm using this analogy because you are still new to it. So very soon there won't be any living room. So this is the master's bedroom. This is the living room. This is the kitchen. Now, what we've done there is logically we've separated them. Nobody will hold you if you decide to take, chair into your bathroom. Nobody will hold you, but you know the outcome. It's not meant to be there. So it's meant to be in your living room. So logically, that's the way we separate our resources within Azure. So we'd say this resource needs to be within this resource group. This resource needs to be within the resource group. So that's the same way we say blender, should be in the kitchen, should not be in the living room. Blender should be in the kitchen, should not be in the bedroom. So you're logically separating your resources. Now, we've talked about subscription management, Azure resources. Now let's talk about the management group. You rented this apartment, you have access to it, but the landlord can always come and say, I need to check what you guys have done inside this apartment. If there is a need for you to do any repair, on this so date, we are coming to check. That means the landlord still have access to your apartment, and they can even send you a mail saying, if you are not going to be at home, we can use our spare key to come in. it is not only your apartment. The landlord has access to other 258 apartments in that building, because they've got like this permission, which you don't have. You cannot go to the other flat apartment and say, I want to come and check. Who are you? You are just a tenant. You only have access to a space that you've rented, but the landlord has access to all those space, meaning the landlord has access on a level above that particular level. And that is the way these management groups work. That means, if you have a subscription, I can have like access on a management group. And if you have multiple subscriptions, then I will be able to access all the subscriptions within that tenant, within that building, access all the apartment within that building, because I have like an higher permission, on that particular building. So that building now is what we refer to as tenant in Azure, but we'll get there. We'll get there. It's not the normal tenant, but we'll get there. So you might be hearing about Azure tenant, Azure tenant, Azure tenant. So resources are actually the Azure portal. When you create an organization in Azure, it's referred to as tenant. So we'll get there. So yeah, describe the hierarchy of resource group subscription. We just said it. That means management group comes first. Then below the management group, we have the subscription. Without the subscription, you cannot create any resource. But before you can create a resource, you need a resource group, because you are saying we need different layouts. Then within the resource group is where you now have your resources. That should do, That should do. So you can see regions are made up of one or more data center in close proximity, and these are talking about regions that we have in Africa, in the world. These are different regions. Then we talk about, this is the region. The other time I was talking about the fact that high availability, reliability. How do that come in place? So you'll be leveraging on availability zones. You'll be leveraging on region peers and the likes, to achieve that. Availability zones, you can see, I just talked about this. This is the data availability zone. We talk about, the north, west, east. It provides protection against data center. Now, instead of having just this is one data center. I just talked about the Lagos data center. This is Abeokuta data center. Even when we have those ones, we still want to replicate our application to a different data center, and that is what in a different zone, and that is what you can see here. Physically separate data center within the same region, so but they are still within the same region. Then region peer, at least 300 miles of separation between the regions, is called the region peer. So you can see this is the region and these are the peers. So depending on what you wanted. Sovereign regions, I just talked about that, US government services. As just China, you can see those are specifically for the regions. Global work too. So what we'll do is, all these work tools are supposed to be after this particular class, but I sent the playlist already where you have all the work tools. So we'll do that after the classes, after the whole class. That will be like a Saturday. That should come up. If not, that should be upper Saturday where we go to all the labs. Azure resources, we've talked about it already. We talked about the resources. I just gave that analogy, where you need those stuffs to be able to deploy within your environment. So what are different Azure resources that we have? We talked about the services. Now IaaS. Now within IaaS, we have different resources that you can create within IaaS, which are IaaS resources, just like virtual machines, storage account. And when we talk about platform as a service, you can create app services, Azure functions, all these ones. We are still going to be talking about them in details. This is just showing you what we have, in place. Now, the resource group, I talked about the fact that you want to logically, manage your resources, and these are like container, that your resources are actually embedded within. This is what we're going to be talking about, and the Azure resources, subscriptions, the management group, which, so you can see the hierarchy. We have the management group, the resources I just talked about, the resource group, and the resources. So let's leave this to next class, where I'm able to talk in details, about each of these, because I would like to explain some of this also. Okay, let's call it a day today. We meet next Saturday. So for people joining on YouTube, for people joining on LinkedIn, unfortunately we do not have recurring events on those platforms. So always watch out for my post. I'll be creating a different event for each of the classes on those platforms. So you would see for next week also there will be a new event that will come out. I will make sure I create those events today, so that if you want to register for that event, if you do not want to miss out, you can actually register for those events, before the next class. So, but for people joining on Teams, this is just going to be like the same link we are going to use till we are done with this particular cohort. Any question before we call it a day? Any question? I'm just going to head up to LinkedIn and YouTube, if there are any questions on there also. So I might not be saying anything for a while. I'm just trying to check, if there's any question on there. Okay, so no question. I believe you all guys understand everything today, so I'm going to call it a day. Bye everyone. Oh, okay, I can see Abraham typing. Okay, let's see if that will be.
Someone is typing. Abraham Sam
Okay, why
is
Abraham is
typing.
typing?
I don't know if he has a message.
Yeah, Theophilus Sawyer, can you just introduce yourself? This is one of the speaker also, that will be joining me on this particular training. Sawyer, Theophilus, just a quick introduction before we call it a day, if possible, if you're there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Baba Femi. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I joined late. I was caught up with some other important activities. My name is Theophilus Sawyer. A colleague of Bulugbe, and well, I'm a cloud engineer. Been in the cloud space for a couple of years now, and just to keep it short, I look forward to joining the next session so we can get to know more about each other. And yeah, so I'll stop there for today. Thank you, Bulugbe.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate, I'm going to be taking my other speakers, I did not inform them when I was making this plan. I just wanted to have something different this year, and I just like, I'm just going to get people to come on this particular cohort to be able to share knowledge. Yeah, unfortunately, I will not be able to provide a slide. I'm so sorry. Is NDA, except if you don't want me to continue being an MCT, a Microsoft certified trainer. So we are not supposed to share the slide. It's only for the trainers. So, but I'm going to send you the Microsoft Learn for this particular. If you have the GitHub link, but let me just quickly take you there. I will share that now. So if you go to ak.ms/ac900, that is what, because the slides will not even give you what you really want. So you are supposed to come here, and for each of these ones you are supposed to go through these learning paths one after the other. Everything we have been talking about, we talked about the cloud computing, the benefits, the cloud service types. If you go in there, you're going to be talking, you are going to learn more about each of these, and these are things we've done. So this is the one you are going to be using. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry, like I said, I will not be able to share the slide, because is a non-disclosure, but like I said, except if you don't want me to be an MCT anymore, and that's the only time I will, go ahead to share it. So I've sent the link, you can actually look at that. You also, please, I need you guys to also go through the link, try to complete what you have in there. There are a lot of things that keep changing every now and then, and that's why you can see me also, I'm also there trying to complete. Maybe there are some things that have changed because I know that I've completed this thing in the past. That means I need to go back there and learn. So I also go back there to learn so that I don't come here with obsolete information. So please try not to just come to their class, every Saturday and say, oh, okay, let's just go listen to Baba Femi. So there are some things you need to also do. Please go to the playlist on my YouTube. You're going to find the Azure Fundamental playlist. You can go to the playlist. Same thing with the lab. Same thing with this Microsoft Learn. And you'll be able to challenge me in those classes and say, no, you're not saying the right thing, So, and this is what I want, So thank you, everyone. I'll call it a day here. Talk to you on Saturday. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, trainers, for this nice session.
Thank you.